For those of us that are philosophically minded, I'd just like to put the meditation that we've just done in the context of the non-dual philosophy. And what prompts me to do so is a conversation I had with a friend who last night, with a friend I had dinner with last night, who was telling me about some Buddhist schools of thought that say there are two different kinds of emptiness. So I was wondering in what context it could possibly be true to say that there are two sorts of emptiness. And I realized later what was being referred to, although it's not a full understanding, it is a legitimate stage of understanding. And it refers very much to what we were exploring in the meditation this morning, which was initiated by this conversation that Joni and I had yesterday, when she was trying to find out what the sensation, at that stage the sensation of the face, really is. And the first thing she said quite rightly is, it is. Whatever it is, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but whatever it is, it is. There is being. And in fact, if we take any object, not just the tingling sensation of the face, but if we take a flower or a glass or a chair or anything at all, before we know anything about that apparent object, the first thing we can say for absolute certain is, it is. In other words, this is-ness, or the existence of things, is not a property of any one particular thing. It is what all beings share, what all objects share in common. So because this is-ness is not the property of any particular object, it is colourless, it is empty, it has no objective, definable qualities. So this is the first emptiness, and it is an emptiness that is confirmed by contemporary physics. If you look into the nature of matter, what you find there is empty. This is the first kind of emptiness, pure being. So then we carried on the conversation that there is this being, this empty being is appearing in this moment. It takes the shape of this vibration, or it comes into existence as this vibration. And then this morning we explored that further, and we had to admit there was one more thing we could say for absolute certain about the experience of this tingling vibration, and that is that it is known. It's not just being and vibration. If this vibrating being was not known, we would not be able to assert in the first place, it is. So there is also knowing. Now when we look into this knowing, as we saw to begin with this morning, in order to visualize it, we added a spatial quality to it, and we called it a knowing field or a knowing space, as I described. This was just to enable us to think about it. And then as a halfway stage, we contemplated this the existence of this vibration suspended, as it were, in this knowing field. And the knowing field is empty. It's empty of objects. So this is the second emptiness, the emptiness of consciousness. The first emptiness is the emptiness of pure being that we find when we explore matter. The second emptiness is the emptiness of thought. If we explore thought, if we explore mind, the second emptiness is the emptiness that we find at the heart of the mind, at the heart of that which knows. That is pure knowing. So these are what appear at first sight to be two emptinesses. The emptiness of matter or things made out of being, and the emptiness of thought or mind made out of knowing or pure consciousness. And if we didn't take our investigation any further, we could legitimately say there are two kinds of emptiness. One called being and one called knowing. But then as we went on in our meditation this morning to having expanded this vibration so that it fills the whole field of knowing, then we go even more close and we ask, what is the difference between the substance of the vibration and the substance of the field of knowing? Don't forget that vibration is made out of this empty being, and the knowing in which it supposedly appears is made out of the emptiness of knowing. And then we look for the line between these two emptinesses. It's not there. It's not there. That is the great discovery of the non-dual understanding. That the reality out of which objects, things are made, pure being, the reality out of which matter is made, and the reality out of which knowledge or the mind is made, which seem to be two, I, the inside self made of mind, and you or it, the outside other or world made out of matter. If we explore them both, yes, they're both empty. The emptiness of being and the emptiness of knowing or pure consciousness. But if we go further, not intellectually, I'm giving you an intellectual explanation now, but this, I'm only giving you an interpretation of what each of us actually discovered in our experience this morning. These two emptinesses are identical. And that is the great understanding that lies at the heart of all the great religious, spiritual and philosophical traditions, and is formulated in the terms of that particular religion. So 2,000 years ago, it was formulated with the words, I and my Father are one, just because that was the contemporary language of that particular place and era. I, that is the essential, the ultimate reality of what I, this mind that knows, is. And the essential reality of that is known, are called my Father, the ultimate reality, infinite being, are identical. Once that shared reality has been overlooked, and these two, there seem to be two emptinesses, we have to find new names for these two emptinesses, and we call this one, the reality of the mind, time. And we call this one, the reality of matter, space. Time and space are both empty, they're both approximations. From the point of view of the separate self, time is the background of the mind, which is different from space, which is considered the background of matter. And these two seem to be two emptinesses. But if we really explore our experience carefully, these two, time and space, are just a very thin watercolor wash. Two different shades of watercolor on the same piece of paper, the same ultimate reality of all experience. The experience of what I, the inside self, and you or it, the outside object, other or world, truly is. And the experience of love or beauty is that understanding. That's what love is. Love in relation to people, beauty in relation to objects. That's what those two experiences are. It's the same experience, called by different names when they are arrived at through different channels. But that's what the experience of love and beauty really is. It is an experiential recognition of what I have just explained in rational terms and what each of us experienced for themselves in this contemplation that we did this morning.